Good evening, everybody. It's
Oliver,
been a busy
I can
week.
hear you loud and clear tonight.
Yeah, okay. We come in perfectly on time. So, how's your week been, Brendan?
Well, to be honest, not anything too exciting. I might as well give a quick plug even to my blog. Posted something about a very early Christmas in the house that I'm currently living in. The landlady has decided to put up the Christmas decorations before the Halloween decorations. There you go. And of course, we will be talking about Halloween. But how has your week been? I believe you've been doing a bit of work with aquatic creatures.
Yeah, I decided to adopt some fish this week. So, yeah, that's all a little bit odd. Getting into the world of my local fish shop sold me a 2,000 litre filter, which is comically overrated for my tank. So I don't quite know what I'm going to do there. Yeah, well, what's coming up for us today,
Yeah,
Brendan?
well, before I get into that, I'm just going to say if people are looking for a zoo in Bogotá, they should probably check out your house. But anyway, coming up tonight
That
on
is
what is, would you believe, Ollie? It's our 10th edition, but it is Colombia's only live and interactive English language chat show. And for one night only, it's Bogotá Fright Night, as we'll be chatting about Halloween. Even Ollie has got in the spirit of things by dressing up. Oh, no, wait, that's his normal look. Sorry about that. But if you're a non-Colombian here, what do you make of how this old pagan festival is celebrated in the country? Over the top or just good fun? For the natives, is the Halloween hysteria something new, or has it been like this for years? Send us your thoughts right now using the live comment facility, or if you're watching the recorded version, you can write to us via the medium on which you're viewing us, or send us a tweet, as always, to @Bogotá_post. First, though, it's our look at what's been making the headlines over the past week. We are going to cast an eye northwards with the US presidential election imminent. But before that, Ollie, if you can get rid of your dog there, and linked to Halloween, as this is, many areas of the country are bringing in ley seca, that's the dry law for the uninitiated, and curfews for the long weekend in a bid to prevent any further coronavirus contagion. In Bogotá, however, it seems authorities are happy to let us use our better judgment. Is that a smart move, do you think?
Well, I'm actually, I think, a little bit more liberal than a lot of people I know in that I tend to trust Bogotanos' better judgment in general. The virus has hit hard here. It's certainly not been insignificant, but equally, it's not hit us as hard as other places have been. I think, in general, the relatively soft touch at times has been, certainly in terms of policing in Bogotá, it's generally worked out well. I mean, if we look at cities like Cali or Manizales or Bucaramanga that are bringing in these heavy restrictions again, they're also the places that were fining people left, right, and centre in the first lockdown, which we largely avoided in Bogotá, I think. So we'll see. Of course, call me cynical. I do wonder if we're going to see an announcement sort of early morning, midday tomorrow, a surprise ley seca or curfew or both.
Yeah, well, we were talking earlier this morning, and I did send a message to Claudia Lopez's, I think he's one of her press secretaries or press officers, and he told me that they hadn't even contemplated it. Now, if we take the
I can't believe that's true.
I know, I was going to say, if we take the definition of contemplate as just thinking about it, I'm sure they have thought about it. But that's what he said. Like that, I think until Friday or Saturday comes, or midnight Friday, I won't believe it until we actually get through that time, but we shall see. I do like to use the old saying, though, Ollie, that a good surgeon knows when to operate, but a very good surgeon knows when not to operate. And I think that might be the strategy that Claudia Lopez et al. Here in the city, at least anyway, are using. Because for me, there are kind of three ways you go with coronavirus. And anyone who's read any of my blogs or listened to my podcast have been on message with this throughout since this pandemic came to the country. It's either a full-scale lockdown, Chinese style, everything's closed and there's no tolerance for really anything. And then on the other extreme is it's kind of herd immunity, let rip, and don't do anything at all. And most nations are going for that middle ground. And I think if you stray off that middle ground, you're only causing frustration for people, because Ireland is a case in point, and this does annoy me. I'm quite vocal about this.
Ireland annoys you mean?
Yeah, well, it's strategy, to be honest. Because they've gone now into a more severe lockdown, but it's still not, like, what's the strategy? If it's zero COVID, well, then even the lockdown that they've implemented is not good enough. So all it's doing is causing an awful lot of frustration and an awful lot of hardship. And also, this monomania is damaging other people who can't get treatment for cancer. And every time I bring this up, I get people who are on the other side of it going, but Brendan, this is a dangerous viral infection. And I understand that. But of course, it is a discriminate killer. And anyone who says otherwise is just lying. We know it's a discriminate killer. But they always bring up the emotive cases. Well, for example, my father, who's 77, can barely walk at the moment. And he just can't. Now, it's a relatively simple procedure, we believe, to see him right. But he can't get a medical appointment for love nor money in Ireland, because the focus, it's just complete monomania is my word of the year with this. So I think the strategy that Bogotá is taking this weekend, and I hope they stick to it, that middle ground, it's kind of keeping the economy more or less ticking over, leaving it to our better judgment. We're wearing the masks, we're applying the gel, washing our hands, trying to keep social distance. The only difference with Colombia, which is strange, because now in Europe, it's a case of lockdown, but keep the schools open. Here, it's try and open up things, but nobody's going back to school. I mean, in my barrio, the people who you would want to be going to school because they don't have internet, they don't have the mod cons to have education at home. They're at home, these children. I mean, what kind of damage that's having for the future? Well, it's anyone's guess, but it's surely not good. So that's my only concern. But will we enter into lockdown further down the line? I think the path that we're taking now is the sensible one. But there are a few messages that are worrying. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
It is a very hard thing to work out. I think it's, coming back to that idea of not having contemplated it. I mean, that's got to be bullshit. I mean, I can't believe that's not true. If everybody around you, Cundinamarca has got toque de queda all over the place. Cundinamarca, we're not even talking about, far away departments. We're talking about right next door. It seems to me incredibly suspicious, absolutely incredibly suspicious that, Bogotá is a massive outlier here.
Well, Oli, are you
so
saying that the press officer of Claudia Lopez truthful?
Are you saying to me that a press officer working for a politician might not be telling the truth? Yeah. I mean, it's a shock. It's a shock to imagine that, I know.
But if we can't trust these people, who can we trust? I'm just about to give up on this year of years now. But no, we certainly will see. I have to say, if people are interested in this and your Spanish is up to scratch, there was a very good article the day before yesterday in El Tiempo, and it's not like I'm plugging El Tiempo because I have a blog there, not at all. But it was about, are we about to enter into another nationwide lockdown? And they had about 5 or 6 different experts, and if it was 6, 5 of them were saying, look, it's not the strategy. The one we're on now is the best. And even Bogotá itself, I mean, at the start of this pandemic only had a capacity for 920, I think it was, ICU, intensive care unit beds. Now that's over 2,000. Yeah. So it's exactly. So you would think that we're better equipped, and of course the focus on ICU beds from your own country. I heard the UK, like there was a focus on, look, we're at 90% capacity in Liverpool and Manchester, whatever. And somebody said, but this time last year, that was exactly the same thing, but it wasn't making the news headlines. So when you're getting these kind of mixed messages, though, it does make people kind of question, hold on, what's at play?
No, absolutely. I mean, I've got family in Wales. That's where my father lives, and that's kicking off at the moment. A lot of criticisms there. I mean, I think what really surprises me, looking at sort of richer world, the slightest inconvenience is, it's the worst thing in the world. People, I can't go to Tesco, so I'm going to die. Or I can't buy clothes for another 3 days. And you go, fuck's sake, really, imagine how that would play in areas of Colombia. When you say, oh, these people back in England, they can't buy, they're going to have to go without buying new T-shirts weekly. Can you imagine how that would on people? Because, there are people here who are genuinely suffering. And anyway, I don't think there's a great deal more to repeat here, other than it does look like this is a temporary measure. It's probably going to be focused on Halloween, which is such a big weekend in Colombia. I would assume things will be back to normal the next week.
Yeah, and of course, just to restate that so far here in Bogota, it will be business as usual, entre comillas, in inverted commas there. But yeah, and by the way, mentioning Halloween, remember guys, in the second half of the program, we are going to be talking about Halloween in Colombia. Of course, it won't be a normal Halloween this year, but it's a festival that's well celebrated here. So do send us your thoughts, use the live comment facility, and on your own thoughts on lockdown. Should we go into another lockdown? Are you concerned about it, or should we be even opening up a little bit more? Do let us know. Oli, moving on, there was a high-profile killing of a high-up ALANA member during the week. Surely good news for Duque that this man was taken out.
Yeah, he's certainly taking all the credit for it, in that way that political leaders love to do, as though they were involved. We've seen that with Obama and Osama and, lots of things like that. I find it a little bit distasteful, to be honest. It's probably a good thing for Colombia that this man is no longer operating. I think celebrating death is a little bit off, frankly.
I hear where you're coming from. Of course, people who have been affected by the guerrillas and all that will say, well, the blood on his hands, that it's...
look, I'm not saying he's a particularly great person by any means, but, I think there's a difference. I've always been very uncomfortable with the way that the UK celebrates the 11th of November. And in the way we celebrate our war dead, that it's often lionising it. And I much prefer to sort of say, look, the Second World War and the First World War were just monstrously senseless losses of life on all sides. I don't think Germans dying is not a great thing, frankly. And it's the same in this case.
Yeah, of course. I think it's more to celebrate peace and advancements in that regard rather than the killing, for sure.
Yeah.
But mentioning Duque...
let's just be very clear. Uriel not being around doesn't mean ALN are going away. We're not talking about a charismatic leader. We're talking about a cog in a machine. La Abuela, I believe, is the woman who stepped up to take his position. This isn't going to change anything.
Oh, of course. It looks good for the headlines and they've taken somebody out, but you're talking about a network of an organization. And to get a real insight into that, I would recommend reading Neil Ferguson, the Scottish historian and author, his book, The Square in the Tower, which details a lot of that. It's actually quite interesting in terms of take out a headman, but there's a lot of people there to take the place. But speaking of Duque, apparently he is really stinking it right now in terms of his approval rating.
Yeah, he's running up towards the twice as many people disliking him as liking him. I'm sure he would prefer to be famous rather than infamous. But he's going the wrong way about it so far. Now, I would take these opinion polls with a pinch of salt, frankly. They exclude a lot of Colombia's population. this one was Cifras y Contextos, I think. It's a very small study. We're looking at 2,500 people. It will be focused on major cities. It will be focused on certain socioeconomic strata, etc., etc. And of course, there's a thing about people not admitting things and stuff like that. I doubt if there was an election tomorrow, we'd see the same results. Let's put it that way. It is interesting, of course, that he was doing fairly well even up until June and July in coronavirus. But actually, as we've come out of lockdown, he's started looking worse, which is quite curious.
Yeah, maybe he's better off if he is locked up himself. He's still doing the nightly TV shows, which at this stage, I think well, I'm not watching them anyway. Put it that way. I prefer to put on some music channel or whatever when he comes on. But of course, we talked earlier, and I think in previous episodes, it doesn't really matter in one sense. I know obviously he has to tee it up for a centre democratico victory in 2022, but he can't run for re-election. So in one sense, like if he was a politician of conviction and a leader of conviction and really believed in things, in one sense you've got a free hand. Now I know he's a young man, so he's got his whole life ahead of him really once he comes out of this, but I'm sure he's getting well paid for it regardless. But because he can't run for re-election, so in one sense, what has he got to lose? But
yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings. I mean, look, I think presidential systems are absurd. They're absolutely bonkers. I can't understand why anybody would be running them. I mean, I understand having a president like Ireland does. It's a nominal head of state. That's much better than us with our queen. I mean, that's definitely a step forward. But having the actual political leader as a president, I don't know. I don't see many countries that are particularly successful under a presidential system. Anyway, I mean, I'd agree with you. I don't understand term limits. I just don't get the idea. I think it's undemocratic, frankly, that you don't allow people to continue voting for somebody they like. It seems to me bizarre. But it's interesting what you say that a man of conviction could, if Duque were one, could drive through an unpopular thing to do the best for the country. Of course, there's a bit of an ethical and philosophical problem there, which is, should a politician do something that they know is stupid and will be harmful if people want it? And, coming from a country that chose Brexit, this is actually quite a relevant point, because we've had to consider in the UK recently, well, it seems insane, but people would rather throw away, a massive trading bloc. Now, I don't particularly like the way the EU is run. I think there's lots to criticise about the EU. I would prefer we stayed in it anyway. I'm sad that Britain is leaving, even if it's personally good for me here in Colombia in the short term. But I think it's very sad, but equally, I do buy the argument that, frankly, we should do what everyone wants to do. In the same way that if everybody doesn't want, dogs to be kept as pets, then I guess I'll release my dogs into the wild.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. Of course, other people will say about Brexit specifically that it's too early to be making any judgment. I mean, you haven't officially left yet. That's coming.
No, we have. We haven't. We're in the. Yeah, no, we have left. We're in the kind of transition period.
Well, yeah,
sort
but
of,
come January, it'll be properly out. Without So we'd have to judge that in 10 years' time. So
talking of which, we should sort that out, Brendan. I was thinking we could get the editors to build some sort of imaginary border between our video links here, something like that.
Exactly, yeah, come January 1st, indeed. Well, speaking of politics and building walls, that's a nice little segue into what's happening to the north of us here, the US general election. We said we'd give it a quick mention. I guess we know what's going to happen if Donald Trump gets re-elected, but all the polls are telling us it's going to be Joe Biden. But a bit of deja vu. We were here before. We thought Hillary Clinton was going to wrap it up. Although I didn't. I did write saying that I felt Donald Trump would win.
Oh, I was never in doubt about that. Yeah, I had running arguments. I used to cycle in with a friend to the university, and he was absolutely convinced that Trump, was going to lose badly. And I said, I see Trump winning this, and he wasn't having it.
Yeah, so this time, of course, people are saying that Biden has been consistently ahead, and in 2016 that wasn't the case with Clinton, so there are differences. They're also talking about turnout that will favor the Democrats, that younger people are going out to vote. Already over 70 million have cast their vote, which is over half of the total that voted in 2016. Now, people are saying that will mean we're going to have a bigger turnout. It might be just the effect of the pandemic, so there's a few things at play. But speaking to people on the ground there and listening to reports, it's the Trump campaign that's the most vocal, the most vociferous, and the most obvious, visible on the streets. But again, that's probably because a lot of Democrats are more fearful of the pandemic and not bothering to go out. And of course, Biden's not having the big rallies. Trump is continuing with his rallies. So there's a number of factors there that it's hard to know, is this just because of the pandemic, or is this because the polls aren't picking up these supporters? I mean, from a Colombian perspective, do you think it would be better? I mean, in Ireland, we kind of feel, it'd be better to have a Democrat in the White House after Trump. Would Biden be a better president for Colombia?
Well, Biden winning would immediately put the Centro Democratico in a bit of an awkward position, since, their politicians are currently campaigning for Trump. So that would be a little bit awkward and a little bit difficult. There might be some awkward moments when, Duque's having to say, well, the fact that people like Valencia or Cabal are running around slagging off Biden. I mean, and not just, let's be clear, they aren't getting involved. Now, I think there's a bit of a double standard here, in that politicians around the world regularly deride Trump. Minor politicians, people of the standing of Maria Fernanda Cabal. In other countries, they regularly deride Trump. Happens all the time in Britain, etc. What's interesting about them is that they're on the other side, which is why they're getting criticised. That's why there was that story in The Guardian today. But equally so, I mean, some of the things Cabal is saying, I wonder how she could... I don't know how you could elect a person like that, frankly.
Well, she's certainly not. I don't know where she gets her support, but I find it hard to find anyone who finds her kind of sane. But she has support from somewhere.
She's two frogs short of a box, no doubt about it. I mean, she's bonkers. I mean, she's properly full on the Kamala Harris is trying to. Ilha Oman is trying to Syrianize the US or something, absolutely bonkers. I mean, properly bonkers stuff, not mildly off the wall. Absolutely, no, she's lost it. She's, if she was telling you this in a bar late at night, you'd be saying to the barman, yeah, make sure she gets home okay. Like, call a friendly taxi. Yeah.
I want to put a scenario to you, though, just... if this was happening in Colombia, if it was a Biden versus Trumpio, I'm trying to put Spanish surnames sounding against them, but
Trumpez.
Go on. Trumpez versus Biden or whatever here. Do you think it'd be a comfortable victory for Trump?
I asked my students this actually a week ago. I can't imagine a politician like Trump in Colombia. It's such a different style of political discourse. Having said that, we wouldn't have expected Trump in America until Trump happened, so hard to say. I can't see it. I can't think. It would have to be, I think, a singer. I mean, somebody like Carlos Vives, but I just can't see him being bothered enough to do it. Maluma, can't see it doing. And in terms of kind of TV personalities, I don't think there's any that are big enough, really. There aren't any figures like Trump, I don't think.
Would you not put Uribe kind of in the same bracket as him?
No, but he's a politician. I mean, he's definitely a politician. I mean, kind of a non-politics celebrity rushing into the public. I mean, you know, an Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Donald Trump. I can't see there being a big Shakira, maybe. She doesn't seem to show any interest in that whatsoever. I think she'd be popular. But yeah, I don't really know who the equivalent is. Shady businessmen in Colombia tend to prefer staying in the shadows. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day, I suppose. I think, but I think, look, Biden doesn't seem particularly interested in either Latinos or Colombia. He is probably a fairer person. I think the thing is, Trump will say nice things about Colombia before he gets elected. After he gets elected, I think he's just going to ignore the country again. So I think Biden probably the better bet.
Yeah, okay. I guess the one little link you could put there is Biden's Catholicism, which will go down well with a lot of Colombians as well. We should see, I guess, this day next week. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's still Trump, but we probably won't have an answer anyway. If it's very, very tight, it could rumble on for a few weeks. Oli, you're a big cyclist, though, and cycling has made the headlines here in Bogota.
You're saying I'm getting fat?
Well, it looks like it.
All right, mate. All right.
Pandemic's been good to you, but no, in terms of you're a big supporter of cycling, and you like to cycle. But yeah, it's been making the headlines for the wrong reasons. There was an article in the Guardian by their reporter here, which kind of kicked things off, and then there's been other incidents. So what exactly is going down?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on. Cycling groups have been complaining for months and years. I mean, this stretches back to Peñalosa, about the number of robberies, the number of attacks. Now, you have to remember that bicycle theft here isn't like in our countries where, you know, you'd expect to see a hacksawed lock or an angle grinded fence or something, and that's it, your bike's gone. That doesn't really happen here. What tends to happen is a bunch of lads jump out at you with knives or guns, knock you off your bike, take your bike and your personal goods. So it's a much more violent form of attack. And it's something that happens with alarming regularity. There's almost no policing of the cycle paths, for a start, for no good reason. There's, of course, like all countries in the world, cyclists being run over is routinely ignored. We saw a video a couple of weeks back about a cyclist being knocked over deliberately off of a bridge in Chia. We've seen people being attacked again in the last weeks. It's all pretty much very toxic. Now, Bogota likes to. Whoever's the mayor, they love to put puff pieces in the foreign media to say, oh, I've got all these kilometers of bike lanes, everything's great, loads of people cycle, blah, 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 ciclovia. The reality of the situation is very different. Now, I wrote a piece about cycling. I've written 3 recently. And I wrote a piece about cycling a couple of weeks ago, just beating the Guardian to it slightly. You know, it's absolutely disgusting, but what are the comments we get on that? Well, if you go to our Facebook page, we've got people saying, oh, well, you know, we don't need more bike lanes, we need to build more roads. You say, well, where? Where in Bogota do you think you're going to put this magic extra road? You know, I mean, people are suggesting highways. I'm like, what? You're going to build a highway on the Septima? You're complaining about a Transmilenio being too much disruption on the Septima, but you'd be happy to build a highway. And it's this same thing. And my article today, which, to be fair, hasn't received the kind of backlash that one normally expects. They seem to have relatively reasonable comments. But again, I mean, my point was, look, does Bogota want to be a city for people or a city for cars? Cars have their place, and it's not clogging up the roads of central, you know, Bogota. Cities like LA have built infrastructure for cars as much as they can stand. I mean, highways everywhere, enormous parking lots everything, putting malls outside cities, soulless experience, completely eviscerating the inner city centre. And what happens? Every single year, the car lobby comes up, build us more roads, tarmac more things. You cannot satisfy them. And we saw the protests today. If anyone missed it, Calle Trace has put in a bicycle lane. And what do we get? We get we get immediately we immediately get people coming out, bus company owners, small floater company owners saying, oh, well, there's not enough space on the roads now. And I sort of say, well, no, there isn't. But forgive me if I suddenly thought that, if I rewind a year, was there suddenly loads of space kicking around? Yeah, good, there's no space, so stop driving your private cars. The problem isn't the cyclists, the problem isn't the buses. The problem is one person in a massive environment violator, just clogging up the system. Bizarre.
Yeah, and people will say, well, there's pico y placo and all that kind of stuff, but the richer people have a way around it. They just have two cars. Certainly carpooling is one way to go. Taxes,
but again, that's a bit of a misnomer. I mean, okay, carpooling is better, let's say, but things like Uber are even more. The amount of extra cars on the street simply because of Uber. It's completely unregulated. One of the good things about yellow taxis is how many there are, more or less. Pico y Placa, I mean, it's not a bad scheme. It's okay. But it's tinkering around the edges. There's, people always say, oh, Bogota's not Amsterdam. Yeah, well, look, Amsterdam wasn't Amsterdam. Amsterdam was clogged up in the 60s. They made an actual choice to say, let's not live like this. This is insane. This is crazy. We want children to be able to play football in the streets. Look, I live right next to a small city park. And it's a small city park where my dogs go to the toilet fundamentally, and I pick up after them. It's not a grandiose park. But even in that park, it's split through by roads. There's as much tarmac as there is grass. Unnecessarily, absolutely unnecessarily. It defies belief. I don't understand why we have to have a road in the middle of the Parque Nacional. It seems to defy logic. And what really annoys me about it, Brendan, is that, I get it. I was born in the British city. It used to be the European capital of car ownership. And it was the British city with the most cars per head of population. There's an awful, awful bus service. And I absolutely understood people using cars. And I understood why the car lobby was so powerful, because everybody had a car. That's not the truth of Bogotá. 85% of journeys in the capital are made not using a private car. They're made by people using public transport, using bicycles, walking. That's the reality of the situation. And, pandering to the 15%, it's nuts, absolutely bloody nuts.
Yeah, of course, it's that 15% that definitely have the loot and the money behind them and the power. So that's
of course, yeah. Why don't we have security? Why don't we have proper speeding cameras in Bogotá? Because a lot of rich people would suddenly find themselves being booked for speeding. Because at the moment they can pay off a cop, and they couldn't pay off a cop in its machine. Simple fact.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the years to come, because still I would say the city's only operating at about 50%, maybe a little bit higher now, 60%.
It depends on the zone, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so, the roads are that bit quieter, and those richer people, a lot of them are probably realizing, well, we don't need to be in Bogotá that much. We can stay in our finca as long as we have decent internet and work away. And I've spoken to a few people who aren't quite at that level of richness, but they're going, oh God, they're going to start a metro now. Imagine the city and the noise and the disruption. And they can, they've all been working from home, and they're on about, God, I'd love to just get out of the city, and I can. So this move away from the cities that they've been talking about in the richer, in the more developed world, Well, maybe we'll see a little bit of it here, but well, time will tell on that one, I guess. I know, Ollie, we might come back to cycling next week because obviously it's a topic very close to your heart, and I do have one or two things to say on it as well when I can get a word in. Just briefly want to mention, Angela, thanks for getting in touch with us. And remember, guys, do write to us. We're going to be talking about Halloween in about 2 or 3 minutes. Always a bit of fun here in Colombia, but of course this year will be a little bit different. But still, we'll talk about it with a view to next year. But Angela, talking about politicians as we were earlier, and the U.S. election and Duque's popularity. Angela telling us they had comedians run for Congress seats here, but the presidency probably not. Well, some people might say we already have a comedian in the in the presidency. But anyway, I'll leave that one aside. Just to wrap up, we can't go a show without talking about James Rodriguez, Ollie. El Tiempo had a story about him saying that perhaps he's the form player in the Premier League at the moment. Of course, last week, though, their winning run, or undefeated run, I should say, came to an end at Southampton.
A shuddering halt, yeah.
Yeah, but they're still top of the league, although Aston Villa have a game in hand, and if they were to win that, Villa would go top. I mean, which is very strange. It's a fascinating-looking league as it is. If the season was to end today, it's rather funny. Well, but James, best player?
Well, I mean, he's certainly on form, isn't he? I've never really, I haven't heard of this group. I don't know who they are. I think you'd be going some to say he's above the likes of Heung-min Son and Harry Kane at the moment, but you know, certainly not. It's not a crazy choice. Let's put it that way. A lot of, by the way, nobody's reporting this really very highly in Colombia, but Jerry Mina's also coming in 5th on that list.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, people are, I guess, a bit distracted. It seems the sport has taken a back seat. The Vuelta de España is on, though, speaking of cycling. And any developments there from a Colombian perspective?
If you stretch Colombia to include Ecuador, talk about Gran Colombia, then we've got Richard Carapaz, Richard Peaceface. He's doing quite well. Chavez in top 10. Yeah, hard to say where anything is at the moment. There's a lot of mountains to come. There's always ups and downs in a race like that. So let's see what happens the weekend. Not completely unfeasible in this season of shock results. Wouldn't be completely unfeasible to see Chavez, but to be honest, unlikely.
Okay. Right. Well, we're going to get on to our main topic now. We've kind of got over time in our little news discussion there. But just, we always do like your comments, so do send them in. Angela is writing ferociously there to us. Thanks for that. Phoenix, by the way, we will accept happy faces. Thanks for that. But Angela, just having a go at you there, Ollie, saying, well, you can't really speed when the roads are so clogged. But of course, as we're saying at the moment, you can't speed because there's less traffic. These days anyway, but yeah, on a normal weekday in Bogotá, yeah, it is hard to speed, although they still manage to do it. And yeah, anyway, about that comedian in Casa de Nariño, well, I will say no more or I'll never get an interview with Presidente Duque. Halloween, Ollie, when you first came to Colombia, did you expect it to be something celebrated, or were you just kind of going, I guess when you were growing up in England, it wasn't something that you really bothered about too much, was it?
Not really, no. I mean, it was sort of starting to come in when I was 12, 13, 14. It wasn't a big thing.
Yeah. I have to say, similar enough, really, for me. I mean, it's a Celtic, or some people would say Celtic, but that is a hard C, festival. It originated from the ancient Celts, and a pagan festival. Yeah? Go on. What, are you going to have a go at me and say that's not the case?
No, I genuinely speaking, the football team in Glasgow, how do you pronounce it?
No, well, that's because it's been anglicised, but in Ireland...
No, I mean, genuinely, because I've heard people say Glasgow Celtic.
No, but it just doesn't make sense now. You wouldn't say that. No one in Ireland would say Glasgow Celtic. They say Glasgow Celtic. But when we're talking about...
I've heard it, anyway.
Yeah. Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
Nobody I know anyway in my group
Right.
of exalted company. But the people, the Celts. But in Ireland, never really. There was a few little traditions like bobbing for apples. It had a lot to do with apples, actually, because the apple was the symbol of fertility. So it's kind of lots of things to do with apples. If you you'd have apples in water and you have to try and pick them out with your mouth, you couldn't use your hands.
Wait. What's fertility? What? Hang on, fertility in September? In October. What the fuck's that about?
Well, the apple in the Bible. Of course, now I'm saying it's a pagan festival, and now I'm talking about the Bible. But for whatever reason, the apple was a symbol of fertility. That's
no. I get that, but surely fertility is springtime, isn't it? Who has a fertility festival in the middle of October? That's weird.
But it's I'm not saying the festival is about that, but the apple was a symbol.
Oh, right, okay.
The apples are growing in September. That's when they're at their peak harvest in September, October. So by the time Halloween, you have a lot of apples. And another interesting one, there was a habit to kick cabbage. Now, I don't know where that came out of, repollo for the Spanish speakers, who don't know what cabbage is. But apparently there was another custom linked to that if women picked the cabbage and the amount of soil on it would mean that their lover would have a lot of wealth. So maybe the idea then to go kicking that cabbage was that people who didn't want to be married or didn't want the women getting them, it's like, let's kick all these cabbages around the place. But anyway, Halloween here in Colombia, it does seem a bit strange because for a country that's quite Christian, Catholic, how this festival has taken off, and they've gone kind of bigger on it, like all the decorations on normal years. Obviously, this year it's going to be a bit more subdued, but they do like their Halloween.
Well, it's interesting when you say more subdued, isn't it? I mean, I think in terms of kind of having big, huge parties, yeah, sure, the Teatron party is not going to kick off, or you'd have to bribe a hell of a lot of police officers to get that one off. I don't know though. I mean, everywhere I've gone, from glasses shops to hardware shops to fish tank shops, everybody's had their little hay bales out and their little demons and goblins and little skulls and everything. I mean, I don't know about you, Brendan. I can't imagine an aquarium shop in England dressing up for Halloween. I can't imagine it. It's beyond my imagination.
Yeah, this day and age in Ireland, I think nearly everybody seems to get behind it, which is new because, I'm 35 years of age. In the 90s, I don't really remember any houses getting kitted out, decked out for Halloween. But from the noughties onwards, it started to become a thing, and now it definitely is a thing to put up decorations. To be honest, it's only in this house where I am at the moment, and I wrote, as I said at the top of the show, a blog story about Christmas being early here. In this house that I'm in, they've bypassed Halloween and they've just gone straight for Christmas. The Christmas decorations are up already. At least, guys, let's get Halloween out of the way before we start thinking about that. But yeah, the decorations, but of course, more than the decorations, Ollie, like people put in a big effort. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that this year. Now, they don't tend to dress too scarily here, though. A lot of people, anyway.
Well, I mean, some of them do. I mean, you've got... I'm always astonished by the quality of costumes that one sees. I remember going to the Zombie March a little bit before Halloween, about 7 years ago, something like that. And absolutely incredible. I mean, some of the costumes on that march just absolutely blew my mind. But it's interesting what you say about Christianity. I think I was dressed as Jesus on that march, and I'm not atheist. But absolutely, I mean, I was worried before, putting on my big white robe and my stigmata and whatnot. I thought people might think I'm taking the piss here, because, in a
said
way
you're
I am.
not atheist, Ollie. You mean you are atheist?
Sorry, I am atheist. Yeah, I'm not religious. Sorry. And I thought, okay, people might think I'm taking the piss of it here, but to be honest, there was no real, people just, I couldn't move for photos. There was no obvious, problem with it. But I find in general, Latin culture is fairly open to, Catholics are very open in general, I think, to idol worship. Mary's always been a big thing alongside Jesus. And certainly, I see Latins all over the place, in T-shirts and jumpers festooned with skulls and bloody, violent imagery. Horror films are incredibly popular here.
Yeah, no, like in cinemas or whatever. Like, not something that I've ever taken much notice of, that they're into their horror movies.
Well, in cinemas, but also, just people watching them, talking about them. Again, T-shirts and posters and stuff of Freddy Krueger or Jason off of Halloween or whatever. And I find it very. I find it very odd, and I'm interested in that. And we actually put an article. We've got a second one coming up tomorrow. We put up an article about witchcraft in Bogotá. Fascinating stuff. I've been here 8 years. I've seen those posters on the side, for shamans and whatnot. Wow, this blew my mind, Brendan. And the one coming tomorrow is spicier.
Okay, I have to say I haven't read that one about the witchcraft, because of course last week in our show we were talking about witches in Cali and sacrificing cats. So a bit of an odd one. You were talking about dressing up as Jesus. That used to be my kind of fallback default costume, just to dress up as a priest. Scarily enough, people go, "Oh, you actually play it up, play the part of the priest quite well." Maybe I should have been a Catholic priest. But I'm going to say something.
I'm not going to say it yet. No, let's all not say that. But everyone knows what we wanted to say, and if you don't, then best you stay innocent.
Other costumes I've had, just while I'm mentioning it, I had a stab at Nicolas Maduro one year, and last year for the company I was working with, we had a Halloween day. So I dressed up. It was quite easy. Freddie Mercury. I just put on the tank top, white tank top thing, and light blue jeans, and a little bit of a mustache. It was great.
I thought you said you were going to get like a skeleton outfit. We've got Paula Perez here, which is good, because if we don't get a comment from her any week, I think we should probably be ringing the police, check she's okay. So she's saying here that actually some private schools, especially with nuns teaching or with specific religious principles, so I guess Christian schools and Catholic schools, strict Catholic schools, that makes sense. They won't allow teachers to include anything about Halloween. Yeah, I can imagine there's no, I'd imagine there's limited ideology of Henero and stuff like that there as well.
But of course, like any... Excuse me, but like any festival that has pagan origins, and people could argue the point that pretty much all of them have origins in pagan times, but the Catholic Church do have All Saints' Day, the day after, to kind of coincide in one sense with Halloween, but they have no links whatsoever with Halloween. Just to people who might be unaware of the origins, the Celts on the 31st, the idea was it was a night when the dead would go walking, and where the whole idea of costumes comes from is that if you dressed up like a monster or something from the other world, the ghosts and the evil spirits wouldn't recognize you. So you could be walking down and say, "Oh, how's it going? Yeah, I'm one of the dead people as well. It's fine."
This sounds a little bit convenient, but okay.
I read that, but anyway, there you go. Who knows exactly the origins of these things, but it makes sense to me, and I like the story, to think that they were trying to disguise themselves and hide away from the evil.
Well, what are you doing? I'm just monstering around. I'm zombie. I'm not consistent. Look, I think there's a lot of, backstory that people try to get out of this. Here's one for you, Brendan. Have you ever seen an island? I can't remember having seen them. Type of thing I hear people talking about from the 60s or the 70s in Britain. I've never seen it. Haunted houses. Huge business here, it seems.
Yeah, I think there are some haunted houses. To be honest, a couple of my sisters kind of believe in all that spirit stuff and the dead coming back to talk to us and things like that. But have I, I've heard of haunted houses. Have I been in one? No.
No. I mean those. I mean like the ghost houses.
Okay, so the ones that are actually kitted out, because there's a difference. Sorry, I know what you're getting at now. But because of course there are those people that say this house is haunted, blah 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 blah. But then, the mimicky ones or the gimmicky ones, whatever you want to call them. The only time I can recall being in one was actually here. I think it was with a couple of my friends from Bucaramanga. We went to Salitre Mágico, and there was one there. It was interesting to say the least. I wasn't that spooked about it. I guess when you build yourself up that you're going to be spooked, then you can prepare for it. But you think they're quite popular here, are they?
Oh, huge business they seem to be. I mean, and I think you handled yourself well. I remember going in one that was absolutely mental. I mean, fair play to them. They did their job well, and I suspect, lighter touch jurisdiction might be the reason they can get away. I don't think you'd be able to get away with the physical contact in England that they were getting away with there. But, bit of an experience. One in Medellin, one in Bogotá.
Contact.
Oh, they're grabbing at your neck and so, that sort of thing, yeah. Fucking hell.
I'm glad I didn't have that, because I probably would have retaliated.
Oh, yeah, no, it was pretty near to the knuckle sort of stuff. Actually, I should just... You were talking about real haunted houses. Obviously, ghosts don't exist, guys. Anyway,
shadow walking by me there, isn't it?
Monsters do. They usually wear Missionarios shirts. Anyway, if you're interested in haunted and spooky houses, let's throw a massive shout out there. There used to be a Bogotá Ghost Tours. Who knows if they'll still be operating post-pandemic, but if they are, well worth a visit. Fantastic. We had contributors go on that, and they thought it was excellent.
Well, speaking of things that used to go on at Halloween from the expat community, an acquaintance of ours, Big Sam Miller from Australia, he used to run a Halloween party, but obviously, of course, it can't go ahead this year. But apparently, it used to be quite popular. Apologies, Sam, if you're listening or watching. I never went to one. I never went to one of them, but unfortunately, did you ever go to one of those?
Don't think I did. I was almost always with I've stopped going out really for Halloween the last 2-3 years. It's become a little bit amateur's night, It's a bit like going out at Christmas, when you get into the novenas, and all the sort of works groups are going out, and you think, oh fucking hell, it's amateur's night tonight. There's going to be some idiot at the front of the bar that's going, hey, what beers do you have? We've got Polka and we've got Aguila. Do you have anything special for... You go, no, look, it's not complicated, bruv. Just get up to the front, 5 beers, get back, make them cold. Don't mess up anybody's night. Don't start ordering, bottles of aguardiente and all that nonsense. Not a fan.
People annoying you, I guess. Officially speaking, anyway, we won't have any children going around saying "tricky, Halloween, quiero dulces para mí" or whatever it is. They're officially not allowed out, are they?
They haven't. I don't know how official it is. People have been told not to send kids out.
Okay.
maybe the alcaldía is just going to start kidnapping children. I don't know if they see them out on the streets. I genuinely, I don't know. I will tell you something though. The kids in the lower apartment in my building, they were singing today. I wonder if some people might do a cheeky run out on Friday to avoid the problems.
Yeah, I get. Well, maybe if they're walking. Yeah, if they're walking on the street, like they're allowed to be out in the street. So if they have their little buckets or their little pumpkin things, whatever they carry with them, give them sweets. But I certainly won't be walking around with loads of sweets. And I think Angela is finishing off.
Wait. Hang on. Whoa. You're thinking about becoming a Catholic priest and you're carrying around sweets for children. This isn't a good look, friend.
I won't be carrying around sweets. I certainly won't. I got. Yeah. Well, did I ever buy sweets? No. I don't think I've ever really been in a house where I've had children calling for Halloween. I've been in tiendas where they come in. Of course, that won't be happening this year. It'll be very.
Yeah, okay. Again, this isn't a thread I want to pull on.
Anyway, how do you finish that? Si no me das, se te crece la nariz. If you don't give me sweets, your nose will grow. Okay.
Must be what happened in Argentina. Oh, let's give a quick shout out, actually, talking about people with big noses and therefore witches. Halloween's a great time to get special stuff. I'm not a big fan of the Bogotá Beer Company, but Tricky is a good pint of beer, the pumpkin ale. And this year, there's a triple brewery. We've got an article about it on the Bogotá Post website. You'll find all the details there. There's a beer called Tabata, like the witch Tabitha from Bewitched, between Chelate Brauhaus 2600 and the very new Wicker Cerveceria, who have just started up in pandemic times. Very interesting. Bogotá's only all-female brewing collective. Right, looks like a good pint. And if you order it as a delivery, you'll even get a bunch of potions. I kid you not, a bunch of potions. You can make your own little love potions. Check it out on the website. It's good fun.
Look, are they any good at removing kind of the crow's legs that I have here under my eyes? Could they do a job on that?
I shall ask the witches, Geraldine, Jennifer, and Lady.
Thanks. Do that for me, Ollie. Cheers. By the way, beers. Is there a pumpkin beer available in this country? Because
Tricky. Yeah.
No, Tricky is because yeah. 2 years ago, I was in New York on my way back from Ireland, coming to Colombia, and I had 10 days in New York with my family there. And yeah, I had a lovely pumpkin beer. The thought had never entered my mind of having a pumpkin beer before in my life, but that beer was actually quite nice. So Tricky. Where did you say you get that in?
Bogotá Beer Company. Oh, no, the witches are making a thing called Tabata, which is interestingly enough made without hops. It's an extremely old style of beer.
Okay.
Check it out.
Okay. Interesting. I don't know why I associate this with Halloween, but there is an Irish acquaintance who's living in Villa de Leyva now, and he makes mead. I guess it's because I'm linking it to the Celts, or the Celtic people, because it was an old Celtic drink. But I haven't been there, but I've heard a few people who've gone and they've drunk it, and apparently it's meant to be great quality. And it's not sweet. If I think of honey beer, that's going to be sweet, but apparently, it doesn't taste like you're drinking Honey Nut Loops or something. I
don't even know what Honey Loops is.
Yeah, breakfast cereal, But anyway, Ollie, I think we're getting close to time here, are we?
Well, we haven't had a note yet. By the way, for anyone listening, if you are looking to get mead, it's called hidromiel in Colombia. Okay. And there's our time limit. All right, well, next week, cycling?
Yeah, just a quick message in from Paula, Andrea. I didn't check this first, so I hope you're not saying anything bad today. One of my colleagues from Venezuela told me it isn't traditional there to ask for candies in the street. Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense. maybe. They just ask. Oh, they have local parades. Okay.
Do they have candies in Venezuela?
Well, okay. Well, I think that's a good point to leave it there, Ollie, before you get ourselves into trouble. So yeah, next week we're going to go into a little bit more depth on cycling, and obviously we'll have our news roundup. But yeah, enjoy whatever you're going to do for the Halloween weekend and the long weekend. Of course, Monday is a holiday, and we'll be back with you in 7 days' time, or hoy en ocho, and when Donald Trump will have been re-elected president.
Bye-bye.